Hello, and you're very welcome back to the Public Eye Business Podcast brought to you by Granite Exchange. I'm your host, as always, Sarah Travers, and throughout this series I'll be speaking with local entrepreneurs and businesses to learn more about how their companies have come to be, to gain insight into their growth and find out how they continue to innovate. We'll also have some interesting guests to help businesses too on their journeys. So wherever you get your podcasts from, remember to keep an eye out for all new episodes and subscribe to stay up to date. So today in the studio, I'm joined by Roger Pollen. Now, Roger is the head of FSB NI, or the Federation of Small Businesses in Northern Ireland. Roger, you're very welcome to the podcast studio.
Thank you very much.
So before we begin, I'm going to give a little bit of background on Roger and indeed the FSB NI. So Roger, as I said, is the head of FSB Northern Ireland, and FSB is the largest business organisation. It represents around 6,000 members across the region who own micro, small and medium-sized businesses. Roger frequently provides expert commentary on issues affecting Northern Ireland's small business sector, and there are many issues at the minute, ranging from business rates, start-up funding, to the impacts of the Northern Ireland Protocol and the Windsor Framework post-Brexit. He's often called to give oral evidence to parliamentary committees in the House of Lords and House of Commons at Westminster, as well as here at Stormont. So he is the voice of Northern Ireland small businesses. So Roger, a slightly different listen for all of our listeners today, because normally we're hearing from entrepreneurs and businesses themselves, but we thought it would be useful to hear just what the FSB really offers to small businesses in Northern Ireland. So if you could tell me a little bit of your background first of all, and then the background to the FSB, please.
Thank you. Well, very quickly, I am from here, but I studied music. I went over to Scotland and I studied the cello there. And I quickly realised while I was studying that actually being a cellist meant I would have no say over my own destiny. So I moved while I was at college into orchestra management and ended up running an orchestra. I was managing director of an orchestra for 10 years.
You did not. I was not expecting you to say that.
Well, I suppose it actually lays the foundations for a lot of what I do now. So the orchestra was very successful. We had a lot of commercial sponsorships with people like Mobile North Sea and BT. We did a record deal with Virgin, so we launched a label with Richard Branson at Virgin Classics, and we did a lot of broadcasting and touring. But one of the reasons the sponsors wanted to get involved was because they worked with the orchestra to use it for their political engagement. So we started to see how big companies used soft power through sponsorships to influence political processes and make sure that politicians were aware of what they were trying to achieve. So I suppose that opened up a lot of doors for me and opened my eyes to what was possible and how big, sophisticated businesses went about that side of their work. So I did that for about 10 years and then moved into commercial property, focused on the creative industry. So working with a lot of the companies that we'd worked with as the orchestra. So we'd recording companies and engineering companies and music and theatre and so on like this in our buildings. And that again gave me the experience of setting up and running a business with a diverse client base. And then I moved back to Northern Ireland, and at that point the penny dropped that actually most of my value came from my network, and most of my network was not in Northern Ireland, it was in Scotland and in London. So I took a job here and set about building a new network through that company, and then FSB created a new role, which was Head of External Affairs, to advocate on behalf of their members. And that then is the route into where I am today as head of the organisation here in Northern Ireland.
And you are very busy. We see you and hear you on the airwaves across Northern Ireland and indeed across the UK, being that voice of business in Northern Ireland. Do you feel that your members are happy with what you're doing for them?
We pay a lot of attention to numbers. It's what drives everything, and the fact that our recruitment and our retention is so strong here in Northern Ireland. Our retention is the highest across the whole of FSB, and our recruitment is in positive territory every month. We measure all of that. So that would suggest to me that people are happy with what we do, and more people become aware of it and join because of that. It's never something you can take for granted. And being the biggest organisation is great, but it also brings challenges because you've got such a diversity of members in there. You've got sales, you've got services, you've got goods, you've got manufacturing, you've got large, you've got small, everything in that mix. So to try and understand how to advocate for all of them and make sure that you're helping them, supporting them and moving them forward is a challenge, but it's an exciting one.
And what is it that you actually do apart from the lobbying? So you talked there about the advocating, but that support. What services do you provide? I mean, let's start with how much does a membership cost and what will that get you?
Right. Well, FSB was set up, this is our 50th year actually, and the reason we were set up was because government did something outrageous to self-employed people who didn't have a voice at that time, and they hiked the national insurance rate on them. And one man called Norman Small, said, that's unacceptable, I'm going to do something about it. So he wrote a letter to the Guardian newspaper and called a public meeting. And quite quickly there were public meetings happening right across the UK, and we were seeing 25,000 people per month joining FSB, this new organisation, to raise their voice and say, we need to do something about this. And from there, the organisation has just grown, and it doesn't just do lobbying, but it then said, okay, if we can achieve things by banding together in lobbying terms, what can we also do to support our members? So that's when they started to buy in services en masse. So you had a huge buying power with that number of members involved. So we have a 24-hour day, 7-day-a-week legal helpline, employment helpline, access to the Legal Hub, which is 1,600 documents on it with webinars and advisory services showing when you might need those and how to use them. And they're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And some people say to me, well, why do you need it that length of time? Why would I need it on a Saturday or a Sunday or at night? And I give the example that if you're running a restaurant at 11 o'clock on a Friday night and two of your staff are having a go at each other in the kitchen, how you handle that may still see you end up in the tribunal. So you just phone the legal helpline at 11 o'clock on a Friday night and you will be speaking to an employment lawyer before the shift is over. You can then handle that with the advice from that lawyer, and you will be indemnified as to how that process plays out. That's a huge comfort blanket. What does it cost? It starts at £195 per year for all of that support. Rises slightly depending on the size of the business, but we're there not for profit. We're there to support our members.
And if you do run a restaurant, or maybe, you are that small business, you don't have the HR team, you don't have the legal advice. What would you say is the most popular benefit that people would avail of?
Well, back to that diversity of members that we have, it just depends. So we have a fantastic funding platform, which is really successful. So if you need to get funding for your business, you go onto there, you put in the parameters of what you want, and people will then bid to provide the funding for you. We have debt recovery. We have the employment helpline. We've also got a tax helpline and a tax indemnity. So if you get a tax investigation, we have former revenue customs people there who will take that investigation, guide you through it, make sure that there's no mission creep by the investigators, that it's strictly focused on what they've said that they want to look at, and they'll manage that process. And we cover the cost of doing that as well.
So that's pretty impressive. Without this sounding like a sales pitch, that is pretty impressive because it's not just a phone call. They take you through the process.
Yes.
All for that £195.
Correct.
That's
You've got that
pretty,
hand-holding right through it.
And you don't need it until you need it. That's the problem.
Yeah. It's in some ways, it's like an insurance policy, but it's better than that because you're right. You don't need it until you need it. But actually, a lot of our members will use the advisory lines when they don't need it. So they're keeping on the front foot. So, for example, those 1,600 documents you get, if you want to make sure you've got the right data protection policies in place for your business, so that if ever you get an issue arising, you just go onto the helpline, get the policies there, download those, tailor them to your business, and they're pre-lawyered, they're sitting there, you have a robust policy in place for it. Or if you want the terms and conditions to apply to a website that you're setting up, you just get that off the Legal Hub as well.
One of the things that a small business owner fears is that arrival of that notice to be serving on a jury. And actually, I realised that myself this year when I was requested to do jury service. And under the FSB, which I became a member of, I saw that they also supported you for the time that you needed to take off to do jury service.
That's right. So basically, the organisation looks at what are the challenges that typically face small businesses, and we try and do something about it in one of two ways. The first way is the side of the business that I head up, which is the political lobbying. So we try to change the law either to benefit the business or to make it easier or to prevent a law being changed that might make things more difficult. And where we can't get that done, we have a member service to try and provide the support. So, for example, an easier one to get your head around, I suppose, than jury service is debt recovery. So we've had a big success recently with the government about late payments and the behaviour of bigger companies towards smaller companies. So we're trying to change the law on the one hand, But on the other hand, we also have a debt recovery service for members that you can use to recover debts that if somebody is failing to pay you on time, you trigger that service and they get after it for you.
Well, that's massively important too. That cash flow is all important. Let's go back to the political lobbying as well, now that we understand a little bit more about the popular benefits and what people can actually avail of. There's so much going on. I mean, you mentioned national insurance hikes. We've seen that again. Is the government listening? Who is it that you're lobbying? Are you lobbying Stormont? Are you lobbying Westminster? It even said in the introduction there, House of Lords.
Yes, so wherever government can do something to small businesses, we have an office and a team that are tooled up to go in there and engage, build relationships, but also to hold people's feet to the fire. So if it's legislation that comes out of Westminster that's UK-wide, that's our team in London. Now, we may have issues that arise in one of the devolved nations that are still controlled by London, so we would liaise with our team within Westminster to try and make sure that the focus is put onto that. Other things are done by the devolved administration, so the Scottish Parliament or the Welsh Parliament or the Assembly at Northern Ireland at Stormont. We have a team there that goes in, engages and builds an evidence base so that you go in and you lobby and argue from a point of real strength and conviction that your members have informed.
Now, let's talk post-Brexit arrangements. Now, at the time of recording, I have listened to a very popular programme on Radio Ulster in the morning, and I've heard small businesses absolutely tearing their hair out now over this new UKIMS number form registration. People are not able to do business if they're receiving any inputs from the UK at all, whether it's materials, whether it's stock, whatever. This is a massive headache. What's the situation and what can small businesses do?
The situation is really complicated, and the bit you're talking about, I suppose, is covered by the Windsor Framework. And I suppose as a lobbying organisation, one of several, we built a big coalition on this. When the Northern Ireland Protocol came in, it was a very rapid sticking plaster on a wound that had been caused by Brexit. And we quite quickly found that it wasn't working. So we built a coalition of other partners, and we lobbied government and we lobbied the EU. And eventually the protocol got replaced or amended by the Windsor Framework. But that's by no means the solution to all the problems. It's still creating a lot of problems, which you're talking about. So UKIM stands for the UK Internal Market Scheme, and that's meant to be something that businesses can join in order to make the transit of goods from GB into Northern Ireland smoother. It's very cumbersome. It's not working terribly well. It will get better in time.
Seems to be a disaster. People sitting outside parcel depots knowing that their goods are in there but they can't be released because the piece of paper hasn't been filled in.
Yes, there's nothing more frustrating than computer says no. And we're seeing that a lot of times. So when we were hearing about the scale of this problem, we were actually hearing it from colleagues in England, Scotland and Wales who were saying, it's something to do with businesses here that can't sell to Northern Ireland. So that, as luck would have it, the queries came to us in the Belfast office of FSB. So we decided to do a survey, which is how we always build our evidence base. And we went out and we got a huge sample size from right across the UK. 778 people chose to respond, tell us their problems, tell us their issues. And of those, we found that 34% had decided to stop doing business between GB and Northern Ireland because of the difficulties they faced. Now
so these are businesses in the rest of the UK have decided not to do business with Northern Ireland.
32% were in GB saying not to do business with Northern Ireland, and 2% were from Northern Ireland saying it was now too difficult for them to do business with GB. So combined total 34%. Now that, you've got to caveat it by saying that was of the people who responded to the survey. And obviously people who are more affected by it were more likely to respond to the survey. But even so, that's a shocking tale. So we published a report on that, and we took it into Westminster. We took it to the House of Lords Northern Ireland Scrutiny Committee. We took it to the House of Commons Northern Ireland Affairs Committee. We took it to the Economy Committee in Stormont. All of them engaged with it, took evidence on it. And I have to say it's making waves within government. And the purpose of doing that is to try and get something done to make the problems that businesses are feeling a little bit easier, or a lot easier, preferably. That's why we build our evidence base. That's how we go about our lobbying. And the story you were referring to is somebody who's still waiting for the system to be improved from what's been put in place to where it needs to get to.
Okay, making waves is one thing. Getting things done is a whole different ballgame. How quickly is that going to change? Because these small businesses might go out of business. This will have a massive impact on how they do business.
That's a huge risk. And one of the things we look at is what's the size of the business base in Northern Ireland? And there are a lot of businesses fail every year, and there are a lot of businesses start up every year. And the risk is that if there are things that are happening because of the action or inaction of government that are increasing the number of businesses failing, that's really difficult to overcome. You've got a big job then to get somebody to start up a new business that will create the same growth and same opportunities that the one that's failed had been providing. So we have to make sure that whoever can do something about that does it, and that they do it as quickly as possible.
And in the meantime, is there any kind of compensation to help these businesses? Is there anything else available?
Again, it just depends. So there are lots of fixes have been applied over the last few years. We've seen grace periods of various sorts. We've seen other things brought in that have been intended to try and make things easier for a while. But ultimately, you need to improve the system. The system isn't working yet properly. So I'll give a quick example of that. Was earlier in the year, we saw a thing called Phase 3 labelling coming in. And that was another range of products that were going to have a label applied to them before they entered Northern Ireland saying, not for EU. What was really frustrating about that was it came just a few weeks after the Prime Minister and Ursula von der Leyen had agreed that there would be a new deal between the EU and Britain. When that new deal is put in place, that Phase 3 labelling won't be required. But because the deal isn't yet legalised, it has to be written up and taken through various parliaments and so on like this, the pain is being applied to us until the deal takes it away. That's deeply frustrating for businesses because it's a temporary move they have to make things worse before eventually they know they're going to get better.
And it's another cost, and it's just time consuming. And, you know, even this UKIMS form, to go back to that, I was hearing somebody on the radio saying the form itself is a complete nightmare. They need support to even be able to fill it out correctly.
Well, I would imagine everybody listening to this programme does their self-assessment tax return, and probably an awful lot of them actually use their accountant to do it. That probably tells a story that if it's a bit complicated for a business owner, a sophisticated business owner, to do their own tax return and they rely on paying somebody else to do it for them, government isn't very good at making forms user-friendly. And I think UKIMS is one of these ones where, because they're trying to achieve a whole lot of exercises in it to be able to demonstrate to the EU that they're living up to their agreements, the form is quite complicated, and your average business owner who's never been faced with this before struggles in dealing with it.
You know, on one hand, we're sitting here in this podcast studio. We're all about entrepreneurs. We love those startups. We love those business ideas. But it just seems that there has been one thing after another. This huge barriers, blockers to just trying to get up and do your job and get to the end of the day and put some food on the table for your family.
That's what's so frustrating. So business is a bit like, and trade is like water. It takes the easiest route. And for 40 years, we've had the easiest route. It's established patterns. And what Brexit did, and the protocol and the Windsor Framework, is put lots of barriers in the way of that trade flowing. Now, some clever business people have seen an opportunity in that because it's distorted what was there before, so they've stepped in. So you see things like customs clearance agencies setting up and absolutely booming because they're providing a solution to a problem that people have now incurred. Obviously, you would rather that the problem wasn't there, but innovators and entrepreneurs, when they see a problem arising and they provide a solution that helps other people, they can make a business out of it.
Form fillers as well, a new business, I'm sure, in the offing too. Globally as well, Roger, the world at the minute, what kind of impact is all that global uncertainty having on small business?
It's always a balance between opportunity and challenge. So, you know, if you look back over the last 100 years in Northern Ireland, the number of innovators that have come out of here who've seen a problem, have developed a solution, and then turned that into a business. So you've only got to look at the Danske Bank notes to see the trail of those. You know, you've got John Dunlop, who invented the pneumatic tyre. You've got Harry Ferguson, who invented the three-point linkage. S.J. Stothers, who invented the air conditioning. And at the top of the tree on the £100 notes, Sir James Martin, who invented the ejection seat. 4 people who created solutions to problems, and in so doing created world-leading businesses. That's really exciting. Interestingly, they're all from County Down. And add to that Sir Frank Pantridge, who invented the mobile defibrillator, also from County Down. So we're great at seeing problems, devising solutions, and creating businesses out of those. But the scale of change in the planet at the moment is extraordinary. I was just reading recently of an announcement in India that 12,000 jobs were going to be replaced by AI in one announcement, one move in particular sector. So there are new tools coming along that offer fantastic opportunity and excitement and great threat and challenge at the same time. And I suppose what we need to do is position ourselves to make use of them, try and see them coming, try and, as we have in the past with those innovators, and harness it to the benefit of the economy here.
And where do you sit on the AI debate?
It's happening. It's moving along. We, I think, again, may find ourselves squeezed slightly because I think the UK is developing its own AI legislation, but Northern Ireland, because of the Windsor Framework, is going to be required to follow EU legislation, at least for a lot of it. So AI in goods. So, for example, your smart fridge that tells you when you're running out of milk, it'll have to be compliant with EU AI legislation rather than UK AI legislation. So it's exciting, it's interesting, but it brings challenges with it. And our problem is to simplify that and try and overcome the challenges that it brings for local businesses and get something done about it to make life easier for them so they can compete on a fair and level playing field.
And I'm seeing lots of adverts at the minute, chambers of commerce, etc., having workshops, having presentations, having people come in who are experts in AI, although it seems like a lot of people are experts in AI at the minute. What's FSB doing, providing now? Have you got something in place that if people say, right, help me, I want to do more, I want to embrace this, I want to free up some of my time to do what I really need to do. What's, in terms of the tools that are available, what's FSB doing to help?
Well, as well as our member services and the lobbying that we do, we also run a lot of events, and so that we will engage with people who are experts in it to put on events so that business owners can come along or go online and get some of that knowledge shared with them so as they can understand what the challenges and the opportunities are for them, embracing that in their business. I think there's a lot of people out there who purport to be experts. I think our role is to try and signpost to people who are delivering good quality knowledge around this space and make sure that members can take advantage of that.
And there are so many great tools out there, just even, for myself, just cutting down on the tedious sort of copying and pasting and looking things up. It's amazing how professional you can appear when you just input a prompt into whichever tool you're using and comes up with incredible results. Yeah, is it all accurate? I don't know yet, but how fearful are you, though, for the workers?
I think that with all of these things, you can go back through history, the spinning jenny. People can now look up on AI what the spinning jenny was and why people were afraid of that coming into the weaving industry and so on. There's always concern around new technologies displacing jobs. I think the challenge is to make sure that you don't shy away from that because we're a literal island, but we're not a metaphorical one. We're competing in the world, and the world is using these new tools. We need to make sure that we don't get left behind in any sense. But equally, I think you've got to be wise to it. So our role in FSB in lobbying terms is to make sure we've got facts and evidence. So whilst artificial intelligence may be a useful way of shortcutting or sense checking, there's nothing beats actually checking your facts yourself and knowing that you're standing on very solid ground. And that's what the team in FSB does.
Now, you've mentioned the recent survey that you've carried out, which is hopefully going to make things a lot better for small businesses in terms of continuing and keeping doing business with GB. What other wins or progress have you seen as a result of FSB's lobbying or policy work?
Well, I think we saw a lot earlier in the year, a lot of effort being put into influencing the government at Westminster around some of the key issues like access to finance and late payments and so on. And it came to fruition just in the last few weeks when our UK Policy Chair, Tina McKenzie, attended an event with the Prime Minister where he launched the Small Business Plan, and that had recognised all of the issues that we've been raising, illustrated, I suppose, or supported by some of our survey work. And survey work has been showing, we run this thing called the Small Business Index, and it's a UK-wide quarterly survey asking the same questions. So it allows us to build up a linear data set. And in that, we can see how business confidence is going. And business confidence has been, I wouldn't say plummeting, but certainly taking a really strong downward trend for the last few quarters. That's been brought to the government's attention, along with what do you need to do about it? What is it we want government to do to stop that decline and increase the uptick in it? So we've had a lot of success in that. Locally, we lobby at Stormont, and some of the things we're trying to do is get legislation changed to improve the situation, and some of it is to try and stop legislation coming down the track that may be damaging. So some of the things they've done recently are around childcare. Now, childcare is a huge issue, not just for the person who needs the childcare, but for the business who employs somebody who needs the childcare. Yeah. And also we have a lot of businesses in membership who are childcare providers. So getting the support in the right place so that you can give access to the talent that's in the workplace or in the workforce but is struggling with the costs of childcare, getting some assistance there is really key. And Stormont has stepped up to the mark. They've recognised the needs there and they've responded with some initial very, very encouraging moves. So that's what we do. The employment bills that are going through in Westminster and Stormont are examples of legislation that we don't want to see coming in the way it's being proposed, because we see it could be very damaging to businesses. So our role is to try and marshal our members to get the evidence we need to put the brakes on that and resist it and shape it and try and make it achieve a better outcome than is currently proposed.
So if you had 10 minutes with the First Minister here, or indeed the Prime Minister, which I think Tina has already had there, what would your top 3 asks be?
I think the first one is to step back and really see how can business play a key part in assisting Stormont and make sure that the economy is genuinely at the heart of what they do. So we've seen Westminster recognise the pressures on business and give significant business rates discounts in retail, hospitality, leisure and tourism businesses for the last 4 years. The money's come across to Northern Ireland, but we haven't had any of the benefit from it. So those businesses are struggling here, but not seeing benefit from Stormont. But I think there's a bigger piece than that as well. We got all of the 5 parties to agree that corporation tax powers should be devolved to the Assembly and that the rate should be cut so we can compete better with the Republic, and we can also compete better with the rest of the UK and become a global leader, really. So they all agreed that should be done. The powers were passed in Westminster, but it's up to the executive to take those powers. They still haven't done it.
Gosh, why not?
You may well ask that question.
Because this has been going on for such a long time.
The reason they say why not is because they say the cost of reducing the tax would come off the block grant. Yes, it could, but there are other more imaginative ways of doing it. What we've got to focus on is, do you agree it should be done? And if it is, let's get on and do it, because that's how you grow the economy. Once you start to grow the economy, then businesses can create the wealth and the opportunities that will then provide the money for services that the executive wants to deliver. It's not difficult, it's not rocket science, but we haven't done it. And the other thing I would like to speak to the First Minister about is the infrastructure. There's so many things that business has said need to be done, like the A5, the A6, the York Street interchange, and the water and sewage system. Stormont has accepted that they need to be done. They've talked about it for decades now. It's not just years, it's decades. And still, the A6 has moved forward. Great. One of those has been done. We need the others to come along
Now,
as
the
well.
A5, that was actually a judicial ruling, wasn't it? So the Infrastructure Minister, Liz Kimmins, has said she's going to appeal that now.
But as I understand it, it's a judicial ruling based on the way that the Stormont bodies went about trying to take the process forward. So, we've got to set our sights higher. That's 2 decades that one has been waiting to move forward. And the York Street interchange was recognised and being funded by the EU back in 2013 because 3 motorways meet at a set of traffic lights. We've really got to raise our game and just do better on infrastructure if you want business to produce the economy that will pay for everything we want to see happening here.
So do you believe then that small businesses in Northern Ireland are worse off than if they'd set up, say, in Scotland, in Wales, in England?
No. I think all small businesses arise because some entrepreneur sees an opportunity and pursues it and makes it their passion and their vision and their living. So, no, I think we all navigate different systems and different challenges and different opportunities, but I think we could do a lot better than we're doing.
Thinking of our listeners here, Roger, many of them out there maybe already operating, they've had an idea, they've built the business, others maybe with that idea. What's something you wish every business owner or potential business owner knew about setting up a business in the first place and the support they should have in place?
This is going to sound like self-interest. It's genuinely not. I wish they all knew about FSB, what it offers, the phenomenal comfort blanket and resource that it can bring at unbelievably low prices because there's no profit being taken out of it. It's the service owned by its members, delivered by its members, and it's essential.
But, so the Chamber of Commerce would say that too. Be a member here. This would give you so much. Be part of this network. Do business within this network. There are so many competing organisations looking for money that many people, when they start up, don't have.
lots of organisations do lots of great things. There's nobody else does what FSB does. And I think if you make an investment in yourself at the start of your career, it's to join FSB. You can then do all of those other things as your business grows. You can join other organisations. A lot of the people like the Chambers actually provide other services that are very bespoke and essential, and they're the only provider of those services. But that comes after your business needs that service. With FSB membership, it's helping you get your business up and running and supporting you.
So give me examples then. Tell me about business owners who have become members and they're so glad that they have because something has perhaps arisen and they got the help they needed.
I'll give you a couple of examples. So one is of a mature business in a really interesting space. So it's a company called Ubloquity. They do blockchain technologies, and their clients...
They have been in the studio. Kieran Kelly.
You only have the best. Well, Kieran's quite modest about what he does, but they are absolutely brilliant. And what they're doing is facilitating trade for other businesses. Now, what I think Kieran gets particularly out of this is the networks. So he gets networks, he gets to bring his product into in front of government officials and so on like this. So he gets a very different use out of the membership to somebody else who's maybe, we have one who's set up a restaurant and joined and got all of the employment contracts and all of the policies that they needed in place. So their parental leave policies, their GDPR policies, everything like that just came as part of their membership. They were able to get up and running with that in place initially. And then also, as they started to recruit staff for the restaurant, they did it with that assistance from all of the advisory services. So people take out of it what they need. There's another one, I'll just finish on this one for the moment, who, fantastic business, an architect's business, had a client who refused to pay the final payment on a large contract. So that member then engaged our debt recovery service very effectively and got the money that was due to them for concluding the contract. So people take out of the membership what they need when they need it. The tax advisory is very beneficial, and the tax protection insurance, if you get a tax investigation, a lot of people use that. They don't necessarily always tell you that they're being investigated because there's a wee bit of a sense of stigma with that. It's just what happens in business. Tax authorities want to come along and have a look and see are they getting what they deserve. We will protect you and promote you and support you through that process.
What keeps you personally motivated in your work supporting the business community?
That's an easy one in many ways. It's the people I work with, both the team in the office who are fantastic, absolutely brilliant. They're the ones that give us all the evidence and really do the hard work. But it's also the members. You know, we've got 6,000 members in Northern Ireland, all of whom have their own story, and all of whom have seen an opportunity and pursued it and so on. And the energy you get from working with people like that day and daily, 7 days a week, you get phone calls, you get messages 7 days a week. It's just so energizing. And the fact that we can all do better, if we really work at things, we can keep on moving forward. And that's what you're always trying to do, is do what you do and do it better.
You've already talked about the wonderful innovators and entrepreneurial spirit that we have in the population of Northern Ireland. But what role do small businesses play in shaping Northern Ireland, in shaping the local communities and the economies going way beyond just jobs and GDP?
There's a lot of that is really unsung. If you drive past any sports ground, whether it's football, rugby, GAA, cricket, whatever it is, you'll usually see banners of local businesses that are in some way or other supporting those. They're sponsoring it, they're advertising there, they're putting money into those. But also we have a big issue in Northern Ireland with economic inactivity. It's a much higher percentage than across the rest of the UK. Small businesses are known to be the best route back into employment for people who've been out of the workplace for quite a while, because they tend to be more flexible, they tend to be local. You can find ways into the workplace that you wouldn't find through other employers necessarily. So they play a huge range of roles within making this a good society and a good economy. I think that role is often underestimated because we tend to look at them as a piggy bank for paying for things like through business rates, but actually their role is much greater than that. I think we need to protect it and champion it.
Roger, the purpose of this podcast is to inspire existing business owners and ambitious entrepreneurs to grow their business by offering an insight into success of other businesses that we showcase in this studio. What advice would you and FSB give to people who may be listening and may have a business idea, but they've no idea where to begin or are unsure as to whether that risk is worth taking?
Well, first of all, I would encourage people to do it and to think about taking that journey. Then I would build a network, build people around you that you can sense check it with, whether that's family or whether it's people you admire in business or whether it's people that you went to school with or that taught you at school. Just go and talk to people, bounce your ideas around with people you trust, get them polished a bit, see if you really think you genuinely have an idea. The thing about entrepreneurs is they often see an opportunity where others don't. So you actually just have to get out there and start swimming, because if you ask everybody around who hasn't seen an opportunity, who isn't an entrepreneur, they may hold you back. Being held back can be a wise thing if you've got a really bad idea, but it can also it can stifle some things. So I think make sure that challenge group is broad-based and diverse in terms of ages and backgrounds and everything else. Test your ideas there and then go out and make it float.
Who has inspired you the most?
That's a difficult question to answer. I wouldn't want to name one particular person who's inspired me most, because lots and lots of people inspire me in different ways. I read a lot. I get a lot of ideas from literature and so on. And I think there's a phrase, or it was written by Ernest Hemingway, and he said, "True nobility is not being superior to your fellow man, it's being superior to your former self." And I think that's the spirit that we should all go about our business in, being superior to your former self. Always pushing ahead, always trying harder, being relentless.
And that is a lovely place to leave our edition of the Public Eye podcast. Roger Pollen from the FSB in Northern Ireland, thank you so much for joining us today. I do hope you've enjoyed this episode. We'll be back again very soon. This podcast was recorded in Granite Podcast Studio. Interested in starting up your own podcast but don't know how? Granite Podcast Studio can help. Record your podcast in our state-of-the-art studio, which is based in the heart of Newry City. Our studio has cutting-edge and user-friendly technology and can seat up to 4 people. We also provide an editing service, where our team using your guidance and editing notes to provide you with a flawless finished product, leaving your listeners wanting more. For more information on how you can get started, visit www.granitepodcaststudio.com.